Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another monthly reading wrap-up. Today I'm going to be telling you all about the 6 books that I read in March. I didn't read quite as much as I was hoping to last month, but I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself in terms of the quantity of books that I read and instead focus more on the quality of books that I read. Was that goal achieved last month? Kind of, sort of. You're about to find out, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first book I read in March was actually a reread, or I guess I should say a re-listen, because I listened to this one on audiobook for the second time, and that book is The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. This was one of my favorite books that I read last year, one of my favorite thrillers of all time now, and I re-listened to it at the beginning of the month because the sequel came out on March 7th, so I wanted to have a little refresher, and I'm glad that I did because there were some things about the story that I had forgotten. But this book remains a 5-star read. I absolutely love this story. I feel like all you should know about it going into it is that a man named Ted meets a woman named Lily in the airport. They're at the airport bar drinking and spilling their life secrets to one another. And Ted reveals to Lily that he thinks his wife is cheating on him, and he makes an offhand comment that he wants to kill his wife. And Lily is like, yeah, you should do it. You should kill your wife and I will help you. This book is dual POV. We hear Ted's backstory as well as Lily's backstory, and it is just a crazy, wild ride. It is so entertaining. It is so intriguing. It has lots of twists and turns. The Kind Worth Killing does end on a cliffhanger, so I am so glad that we got a sequel, and that is the next book that I also listened to on audio, The Kind Worth Saving. This one does have some of the same characters from The Kind Worth Killing. I feel like it's a little bit of a spoiler to tell you which characters, so I'm not gonna say, but this one follows a very similar storyline. We have a woman named Joan who thinks that her husband Richard is cheating on her, so she ends up going to this detective private eye to follow her husband Richard around so that she can have proof that he actually is having an affair. And this story was very engaging, very intriguing. I was interested to know what was going to happen the whole time. We did get closure for what happened in book 1, so I was very, very happy about that. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I really liked that we got some characters from the first book and we got some closure about what happened in The Kind Worth Killing. But overall, I just didn't think this book hit quite the same as The Kind Worth Killing did. It was a good story. I enjoyed it in the moment. I do think it's worth reading if you've read The Kind Worth Killing and you enjoyed it. The next book I read, I am so excited to talk about because I'm obsessed with it. It's a new favorite for me, and that is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is the start to the Boys of Tommen series. I have been hearing a lot about this series, and pretty much everyone gives this book 5 stars, so I really wanted to know what it's about. I heard it took place in Ireland, and that's really all it took for me to want to read it. Something about Irish stories, I just love them so much. So this book follows a girl named Shannon Lynch. She has been severely bullied in school for her entire life, and her home life is just as bad. She's had a really rough upbringing, but finally her mom gets a second job to be able to afford to send Shannon to a private school in the hopes that she won't be bullied anymore and can have an easier time. And so Shannon does transfer to a private school, and this is where she meets a guy named Johnny Kavanagh. He is the star of the rugby team, and on her very first day he accidentally throws a rugby ball, hits her in the head, knocks her out. When Shannon's mom finds out about this, she is furious because she's like, you know, I sent you to the school so stuff like this wouldn't happen. And Shannon's like, no mom, it's just a misunderstanding, it was an accident. And Shannon's mom kind of forbids Johnny from talking to Shannon, but the whole time for months they're like passing glances at one another. You get both of their POVs and learn that they just have this feeling about one another that they can't shake off, and they can't stop thinking about the other person. And it is a very, very slow burn romance, but this is part of a duet. So in book 2, I know we're gonna get more of Johnny and Shannon. I cannot wait to pick that up next month. I loved this book so much. If you can't already tell, it was an easy 5 stars for me. I thought it was incredible. I really loved Johnny and Shannon's dynamic. Johnny is a top tier book boyfriend. The way he cared for Shannon was just like nothing I've ever seen before. Shannon can definitely be a frustrating character at times. She was very like clumsy, and there were so many times in the book where she would just like trip and fall, and I was like, Shannon girl, get it together. But what she's been through makes you have so much sympathy for her that I could overlook the things that annoyed me about the book just slightly. But other than that, I really have no critiques of this book. Like I said, something about Irish books, I don't know what it is, but the way Irish authors write characters and stories just is so realistic and so relatable. And I loved the main characters in this book equally as much as I loved the side characters. I do love that in sports romances we get that found family aspect. This book was no different. That is why I'm so happy this is a series and that lots of characters in the story are going to get their own books. Because like I said, I just loved everyone. I really and truly just cared for all the characters in the story so much. So if you've been thinking about picking up the Boys of Tommen series, this is your sign to do it. Then in honor of Pisces season and being a Pisces myself, I picked up The Pisces by Melissa Broder. In this book, we're following a woman named Lucy who has a bad breakup. She gets out of a long-term relationship and she's really struggling with her mental health. So she decides to escape by going to Venice Beach to stay in her sister's home right on the water while she's away. And she basically is house sitting / dog sitting for her sister. She's also trying to get her life together. She's going to therapy. And while she's there at Venice Beach, one night she goes down by the water and ends up meeting a man who she thinks is a swimmer, and then comes to find out he's actually a merman, and you follow their romance. And if that sounds weird, you would be right. This book was very weird. It reminded me so much of My Year of Rest and Relaxation, where we have an unlikable protagonist who is struggling with her mental health, and she is going about solving her issues in very unconventional ways. I really liked this book to start though. I really enjoyed the writing style. It really pulled me in and I was so interested in the story. But by the halfway mark, I felt like the story took a turn and I just didn't really enjoy the last half of the book quite as much. So to start, it definitely was a 4-star, but by the end, I bumped it down to a 3-star. I feel like this will work for some people. If you like weird, you might like the vibes of this book, but overall, I just thought it was okay. And the next book that I read is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hochul. In this book, we're following an engaged couple, Naomi and Nick. We do get a glimpse at what their relationship was like when it was in a good place and they were happy and in love. But now you see in the present that their relationship has turned sour. Naomi especially has gotten the ick with Nicholas and she keeps trying to sabotage the relationship so that he'll end it and that she won't be footed with the bill for their wedding. And then you learn that maybe Nicholas isn't feeling their relationship either, so then a prank war ensues. And in the process, they end up reconnecting and re-falling in love with one another. This book personally just wasn't for me. I ended up giving it 2 stars. I feel like my main issue with it was that I never really understood how the characters were feeling. I didn't know whether Naomi actually didn't like Nicholas or if she was being sarcastic half the time or what her deal was. And we don't get Nicholas's point of view either. We only see Naomi's point of view. So I never knew how Nicholas really felt about Naomi, if Naomi was just misunderstanding what Nicholas was doing and saying. And I'm actually one of the few who don't mind the miscommunication trope because it feels very realistic to me. I feel like in real life, people are bad at communicating how they feel. So I tend to like a miscommunication trope. But in this book, I could not understand why they would go to all the trouble and all the effort to pull these elaborate pranks on one another, but they couldn't take the time to just like sit down and hash out their feelings with each other. They do reconnect, like I said, and re-fall in love towards the very end, but by that point it just felt like it was too little too late. It felt like the relationship wasn't even worth saving. It did not feel salvageable, so I wasn't really rooting that hard for them to get back together, even though it was really cute when they were re-falling in love and having fun with one another. There was this moment on one page that I marked because it perfectly explained how I was feeling when they were re-falling in love. Naomi says, "It makes me so sad that all the good parts in the story of us are rolling in right at the end." And I was like, yeah, that is so unfortunate. I feel like it should have been the last half of the book where they're re-falling in love and not so much time spent on them hating one another. But to me, the pranks went on too long. It was reminding me of The Hating Game, which, if you know, I'm not a fan of that book, so unfortunately this one didn't really work for me. But like I said, I did like the happy parts at the end of the book, and I will say there's something about this book that I just flew through. I kept wanting to know like what was gonna happen. So For those reasons, it's definitely a 2-star and not a 1-star book. I don't hate this book, but I mostly just think it wasn't for me. I've heard tons of mixed reviews about this, so I definitely think it could work for some people, but just personally, not myself. And the last book that I read in March is In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. I honestly don't know what made me pick this book up because I've heard very mixed reviews on it, and the premise didn't exactly pull me in, but I think it's the really cute cover that just drew me to it. Something about it, I just wanted to pick it up and give it a try. In this book, we're following a woman named Shay. At the start, it is her wedding day, and her fiance calls off the wedding literally hours before she's about to walk down the aisle. And while she is heartbroken and grieving the end of that relationship, a lawyer ends up coming to her, giving her these papers saying that her grandmother who passed away has left her tulip farm to Shay, located in Rhode Island. The only stipulations being she has to live there for, I think, like 6 months out of the year, and she has to get married. So she decides to go to kind of check out the scene, get away from everything for a little bit. When she gets there, she ends up meeting Noah, who still lives there. He was one of her childhood friends, and he owns and lives in the neighboring farm. She tells him about her situation. He agrees to be the one to marry her. I really liked Shay and Noah. I liked their dynamic. I thought they were so cute. It took me a little bit to get into. It was a slow start, but by the 20%, I was really into the story. I feel like the only thing for me that was kind of weird was the marriage of convenience trope was kind of like iffy. It never really was explained like why her grandmother wanted her to get married. I don't know, Noah just agreed to it like so quickly. And he kind of played it off like, oh, like it'll benefit me to help run your land or whatever. It'll be good for business, but I don't know, kind of felt like there were a few plot holes there. But other than that, it was a really enjoyable story. I looked forward to picking it up every time. And I think if you like small town romances, you will really like this one. I always say that small town romances aren't really my thing, but maybe they are, because the past few I read have really worked for me, and this one really worked for me. I think the thing that made it different is that both Noah and Shay were city people that came back to this small town, so we do get kind of like a big city vibe a little bit, and then the cute cozy location of this small farm town. This book reminded me of Things We Never Got Over, but way less cheesy. I really appreciated that it wasn't cringy. There might have been a few cheesy moments here and there, but overall I wasn't cringed out by it. I didn't find it overly cheesy. I mainly just found it super, super cute. But yeah, I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I wasn't deeply connected to it or anything. I don't think it's gonna have a super lasting impact on me or be something that I think about all the time, but I did really enjoy reading it in the moment. I thought it was a super cute story. Really enjoyed reading about Shay and Noah's romance. And those were the 6 books that I read in March, so that's going to conclude this monthly reading wrap up. I feel like this one was super short and sweet. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit the red subscribe button down below if you are not already, so you can stick around to my channel and you won't miss any upcoming book videos from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you so soon in my next video. Bye guys.